What do you think immigrants first expect to encounter when coming to America?
I think that they expect to encounter opportunity because that is what draws them here, is they have this idealism that America is the land of opportunity.
What rights and opportunities do you think that immigrants deserve if they become American citizens? And then, in the same question, if they are illegal, what rights and liberties do they deserve?
Well, if they become Americans, I think they should have the same rights that we do. If they're illegal, I think they should be sent back because they're not here legally.
Cool. In today's society, what do you think is a fair minimum wage? Do you agree with Obama rising minimum wage?
I would have no idea what a fair minimum wage is. A minimum wage, I believe, really is intended for people that don't have an education, and especially kids. Like 16, I think, is the minimum age to work now. But they're not renting apartments, and they're not paying a mortgage, and they don't have car payments. And it really is meant for them to live like a 16-year-old does. Do I agree with it being raised? Probably not. I think that if you have an education, I sound like such a mean person, don't I? I believe that if you work hard, you deserve to be treated that way. I believe that if you have a great education, that you should be compensated for that education.
Okay.
Sorry.
What about people who can't get an education?
And there are people that can't. If you are not able to, but I believe, it's funny, I don't believe in a lot of government involvement in our lives with healthcare and whatnot. I do believe in government involvement in education. I took a trip to Russia and Czechoslovakia probably 20 years ago, and they were amazed that my education was not paid for by the government. In a lot of countries, if the government has deemed that you should go to school, the government pays for you to go to school. I would rather see the minimum wage stay where it is, and that money that would have been to raise the minimum wage to go towards people going to college.
In today's society, what do you think is a fair minimum wage?
I think the fair minimum wage has to be set by the cost of living and the standard of living.
Do you agree with Obama rising the minimum wage?
I think, and don't quote me, I think the current minimum wage is like $7.25, and Obama, like $10-ish, $10.10 an hour maybe is what they're wanting to raise it to. I agree from the standpoint if you take $7.25 and you times that by 40 hours a week, and then times that by 4 weeks in a month, it equates to about $1,160 a month. $1,160 a month when you deduct rent, utilities, transportation, food, cost of living. There's no way. It's minimal. Look in the WAN ads and see what it costs to live anywhere. If you make $1,160 a month, working 40 hours a week in this country, I don't see how you could make it.
Do you think America's large corporations have a history of taking advantage of their consumers and workers? If so, in what ways?
I think they do have a history of taking advantage of their workers. It's why unions were first put in place. It was to protect the employer and the employee, so that those things didn't happen. What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
If so, in what ways?
Large corporations can get away with a lot. They tend to, and this is a generalization that I've observed with my husband working in large corporations, they tend to treat higher level executives probably unfairly the other direction. They're probably given way more than they should have, and I think the lower level employees are treated poorly.
Which do you think is the more ideal system, capitalism or socialism?
Well, I think business owners should be able to run their own businesses. However, I think there should also be some regulations that they have to follow.
Is healthcare a privilege or a right?
It's a right if you're paying for it. I don't think necessarily a privilege.
Do you agree with our country's healthcare system, Obamacare? If yes, why? If not, what would be your solution?
I definitely do not agree with Obamacare. I think that all of the taxpayers will end up paying for or funding all of healthcare. Physicians won't be able to run their businesses and keep their practices up because of the cost of malpractice will be so high, and therefore there will be less doctors and less nurses. I think people will have to end up waiting for appointments and surgeries and procedures that need to be done. Overall, I think the mortality rate would increase with Obamacare. So I am really against Obamacare.
Do you have a solution?
I think they should just leave the system as it is. I think it works well, and shouldn't change what we have.